What if I told you that men over 60 possess a specific psychological advantage in attracting women that younger men simply cannot replicate, and the men who understand this are creating the most fulfilling romantic connections of their entire lives? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will completely change how you approach dating after 60. You're over 60, and maybe you've convinced yourself that your best years of romance and attraction are behind you. You look around and see younger men with their youth, their energy, their full heads of hair, and you think, how can I possibly compete with that? Maybe you've been divorced. Maybe you're widowed. Maybe you're single for the first time in decades, and the dating landscape feels completely foreign and intimidating. You see women your age seemingly interested in younger men. You hear about age gap relationships going the other direction. And you wonder if you've become invisible in the dating market. Here's what most men over 60 don't realize. You're not competing with younger men. You're playing an entirely different game, one where you have inherent advantages that younger men cannot match, no matter how hard they try. And the women who are drawn to mature men aren't settling. They're choosing deliberately. They're seeking qualities that only come with age, experience, and the kind of wisdom that can't be faked or rushed. Before we break down the specific behaviors that make mature men irresistible, you need to understand something fundamental about female psychology and attraction. Women's attraction priorities shift significantly as they mature. What excited them at 25 is not what attracts them at 45, 55, or 65. Younger women are often attracted to potential, to excitement, to the promise of what could be. They're still figuring out who they are, so they're drawn to men who reflect the energy and possibilities they're exploring. But mature women, women who've lived, who've experienced relationships, who know themselves, are attracted to something entirely different. They're attracted to presence, to stability, to emotional intelligence, to a man who knows who he is and doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And men over 60 who understand this shift, who stop trying to compete with younger men on their terms and instead lean into their unique advantages, become magnetically attractive to quality women. Psychologists call this differentiated attraction. You're not trying to be the most exciting option. You're being the most grounded, authentic, and emotionally mature option. So, let's break down exactly what men over 60 do that women find absolutely irresistible. Quality number 1. They've stopped performing and started being. The most attractive men over 60 have stopped trying to impress people and started simply being themselves, with complete comfort. Here's what this looks like in practice. A younger man on a date might spend the entire time trying to prove his value, talking about his accomplishments, name-dropping, trying to appear successful and interesting. A mature man who understands his worth? He asks questions. He listens genuinely. He's comfortable with silence. He's present in the conversation rather than performing in it. This shift is psychologically powerful because it demonstrates something that younger men rarely possess: secure self-worth. When you stop needing external validation, when you're comfortable in your own skin regardless of whether someone is impressed by you, it creates a magnetic presence that women find incredibly attractive. Let me give you a real-world example. A 62-year-old client of mine named Richard went on a date with a woman he met through a mutual friend. Instead of trying to impress her with stories about his career or his accomplishments, he spent most of the dinner genuinely curious about her life, her passions, her experiences, what brought her joy. She later told him it was the most refreshing date she'd had in years because he wasn't performing. He was just present. The psychological principle here is authentic presence versus performative interaction. Women, especially mature women, are exhausted by men who are constantly trying to prove something. They're drawn to men who have nothing to prove because they already know their worth. But that's just the foundation. The second quality goes even deeper. Quality number 2, they offer emotional stability, not emotional roller coasters. Younger relationships are often characterized by drama, intensity, emotional ups and downs. And when you're young, that can feel exciting. But mature women who've been through unstable relationships, who've experienced emotional chaos, who've raised families or built careers, they're not looking for drama. They're looking for peace. And men over 60 who've done their emotional work, who've processed their past, who've learned to regulate their emotions, they offer something incredibly rare and valuable: emotional stability. This doesn't mean being boring or emotionally flat. It means being steady, reliable, and emotionally regulated. You don't react with anger when things don't go your way. You don't create drama to feel alive. You don't need constant validation or reassurance. You can handle conflict with maturity and calm. The psychological principle here is secure attachment. Women are subconsciously screening for men who can provide emotional safety. When a man demonstrates that he won't become emotionally volatile, won't create unnecessary drama, and can navigate challenges with calm maturity, that creates deep attraction. Think about it from her perspective. She's probably been through relationships with emotionally immature men who couldn't handle their feelings, who blamed her for their unhappiness, who created chaos. When she meets a man who's genuinely emotionally stable, who can have difficult conversations without losing his composure, who doesn't need her to manage his emotions for him, it feels like coming home. Have you noticed how differently you handle emotional situations now compared to when you were younger? Drop a comment about the biggest shift you've experienced. But the third quality might be the most powerful of all. Quality number 3. They have clear boundaries and know what they want. One of the greatest gifts of aging is clarity. You know what you want. You know what you don't want. And you're no longer willing to waste time on relationships that don't align with your values. This clarity is incredibly attractive. Younger men often struggle with boundaries. They're people pleasers, afraid to state their needs clearly, worried about disappointing someone or losing an opportunity. Mature men who've learned to value their own time and energy, they set clear boundaries without apology. They're clear about what kind of relationship they're looking for. They're honest about their capacity and availability. They don't play games or send mixed signals. Let me give you a specific example. A 65-year-old man I know named Tom met a woman who wanted to see him every single day, but Tom valued his alone time and his existing commitments to friends and hobbies. Instead of going along with her expectations while resenting it, he had a direct conversation. I really enjoy spending time with you, but I need a couple evenings a week to myself and to maintain my other relationships. Is that something that works for you? She respected him more for his honesty, and they built a relationship with healthy boundaries from the start. The psychological principle is self-respect breeds respect. When you demonstrate that you value your own time, energy, and needs enough to set clear boundaries, women don't see it as rejection. They see it as strength. Women want men who know their worth. And knowing your worth means being willing to walk away from situations that don't serve you, even if that means being alone. And this connects to the fourth quality that women find irresistible. Quality number 4. They bring wisdom and perspective, not just opinions. There's a massive difference between having opinions and offering wisdom. Opinions are cheap. Everyone has them. They're often reactive, ego-driven, based on limited information. Wisdom is rare. It comes from lived experience, from mistakes made and lessons learned, from years of observing patterns in human behavior. Men over 60 who've cultivated wisdom, who can offer perspective without being preachy, who can listen before advising, who understand nuance and complexity, are incredibly valuable to women. This shows up in how you handle her challenges. When she's dealing with a difficult situation, a younger man might immediately jump in with solutions or tell her what to do. A wise, mature man, he listens. He asks questions to understand the full context. He might share a story from his own experience that relates, offering perspective rather than directives. You know, I went through something similar 20 years ago. Here's what I learned. This approach respects her intelligence and autonomy while offering the benefit of your experience. The psychological principle here is collaborative wisdom versus authoritative advice. Women don't want to be told what to do. They want a partner who can think through things with them, who brings decades of perspective to the conversation without dominating it. But the fifth quality ties everything together. Quality number 5. They're comfortable with their sexuality without being desperate. Here's something most men over 60 don't talk about. Your relationship with sexuality and intimacy becomes more powerful with age, not less, if you approach it correctly. Younger men often approach sexuality with desperation, performance anxiety, and ego attachment. Sex is about proving their masculinity. Mature men who've had years of sexual experience, who've learned what truly creates intimacy, who understand that great sex is about connection rather than performance. They bring a completely different energy. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not performing. You're genuinely interested in creating a mutually pleasurable, intimate experience. This shows up in how you talk about and approach physical intimacy. You're not rushing. You're not pressuring. You're comfortable building anticipation. You understand that intimacy is as much about emotional connection as physical technique. And here's what's fascinating. Women find this confidence and lack of desperation incredibly attractive. When you're comfortable with your sexuality without being defined by it, when you can be physical without making everything about sex, when you understand that intimacy is a conversation between two people rather than a performance, that creates powerful attraction. The psychological principle is secure sexuality versus anxious performance. Women can sense when a man is desperate for validation through sex versus when he's genuinely interested in mutual pleasure and connection. Now, let's bring this back to your real life. If you're over 60 and you've been feeling invisible or irrelevant in the dating world, I want you to shift your perspective completely. You're not at a disadvantage. You have advantages that younger men would kill for if you're willing to embrace them rather than trying to compete on youth and energy. Your emotional stability is valuable. Your clarity about what you want is attractive. Your wisdom and perspective are rare. Your authentic presence is magnetic. Your comfortable relationship with intimacy is powerful. The women who are right for you aren't looking for a younger version of themselves. They're looking for exactly what you have to offer if you're willing to offer it with confidence. Here's the deeper truth about attraction after 60. The dating game fundamentally changes. It's no longer about surface-level attraction or potential. It's about substance, compatibility, and genuine connection. And the men who thrive in this environment are the ones who've stopped trying to be something they're not and started owning who they actually are. You've lived. You've learned. You've made mistakes and grown from them. You know yourself in ways younger men simply cannot. That self-knowledge, when expressed with confidence rather than apology, is one of the most attractive qualities you can possess. Women aren't looking for perfect. They're looking for real, grounded, emotionally mature, and authentic. And if you've done the work to become that person, if you've processed your past, developed emotional intelligence, and learned to value yourself, you're exactly what quality women are looking for. So, here's the ultimate takeaway for men over 60. Your age isn't a liability, it's an asset. But only if you embrace the qualities that come with maturity rather than trying to recapture your youth. Stop competing with younger men on their terms. Start offering what only you can provide: presence, stability, wisdom, boundaries, and mature sexuality. The women who are drawn to these qualities aren't settling. They're choosing wisely. They're selecting partners who can offer what actually matters in creating lasting, fulfilling relationships. Your best years of romance aren't behind you. For many men, they're just beginning because you finally have the emotional maturity and self-knowledge to create the kind of connection you were never capable of when you were younger. If this shifted your perspective on dating after 60, hit that like button. It helps other mature men discover this message when they need it most. And if you want more insights into attraction psychology, relationship dynamics, and creating genuine connection at any age, subscribe and turn on notifications. I break down the psychology of relationships and attraction every single week. Drop a comment below. What's been your biggest insight about dating and attraction as you've gotten older? What advantages do you bring now that you didn't have when you were younger? I read every comment, and this community thrives on men sharing their wisdom and experiences with each other. Remember, maturity is your superpower, but only if you own it. Stop apologizing for your age and start leveraging the unique strengths that only come with decades of life experience. The right woman isn't looking for a younger man. She's looking for a mature man who knows his worth. Be that man. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.